Welcome to the Family Banking Show with your hosts Rob, Derek, and John, where we dive into the world of the infinite banking concept and discuss personal banking strategies to secure your legacy and build generational wealth. We're glad you're here, and we hope this episode serves you well.
If you're interested in learning more about setting up your own family banking system, send an email to thefamilybankingshow@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you.
In this episode, we're talking about the power of intentionally saving as your income increases. How can we manage our expenses to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves and our family to the best of our ability? Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Family Banking Show. We are your hosts, Derek, Rob, and John. Guys, how's it going this week?
Good. My voice is not as low as last week, so I'm over feeling a lot better. Family's still a little sick, but feeling better.
Yeah, Rob, you're playing a little James Earl Jones. Gotta bring back Darth Vader for this podcast.
Yeah. Luke, I am your father.
Yeah, no, it's good. We're in the thick of winter. I feel like, again, like this is the second winter I've ever been in Minnesota, and still hardly any snow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Feel like
Yep, it's nice.
that would just make it so much better, but
You can't leave, John.
careful what you wish for type of things.
Yeah. You could probably find a snowmobile for really cheap right about now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the snowmobilers are bummed. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
There are
heard
people
actually.
in the U.S. who have no idea what a snowmobile is.
Meanwhile, my parents in Texas are like, "Oh, it's 75. I just want to walk." I was, wearing tank top, like, man.
Yeah, it's still cold here, but yeah, no snow on the ground, which is okay by me. I don't really like shoveling, so.
Yeah, fine with me too.
All right, guys. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the power of intentionally saving the amount of money that is passing through your hands in the form of your salary. And John, you had pulled up previously, what's the current personal savings rate in the U.S.?
Yeah, the most recent data that we got was last month, and it's at 4.4%, which actually is pretty high historically.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I think over the last, probably 10 years, you could pretty safely say it fluctuates between 3 and 5% for most Americans. And this is after taxes, so what's your net savings divided by your total income or salary for the year? And that's how you would generally calculate your savings rate. So in this episode, we're talking about, most people, they can expect their income to increase over their working years, either through promotions or bonuses or just with inflation. Maybe you're working at a company that allows your income to increase every year. And for most people, that might be between 2 and 3%, would you say, guys?
2 and 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
2 and 4 probably, yep.
Yeah. So in our example today, we're going to look at, what happens if your income were to increase by 3% annually. We're going to do some comparison. And the big thing that we want to drive home to our audience is if you can just control the amount that your expenses grow relative to your increasing income. If we can just manipulate that one lever, what is that going to do for your family and your future wealth, so on and so forth? So why don't we go ahead, John, you can pull that up, our example here. And Rob, while he's taking a look at that, talk to us a little bit about Parkinson's law.
Yeah, no, so if our listeners will recall, in our previous episodes, we went through Nelson Nash's book, seminal work, Becoming Your Own Banker. And at the beginning of the book, he talks about different financial laws. And one of them is Parkinson's law, and that's where your expenses rise to meet your level of income. So in a sense, the more money you're getting, the more you spend on things. It's like you couldn't afford that. You couldn't afford the cooled seats, the heated and cooled seats in your car before, but now that you've gotten a raise and you've got more money, the new car you buy is more expensive, but it has those heated and cooled seats. So you're always spending at the level of your increase. And that was one of the challenges that Nelson points out in the book, is if you can beat these laws just by default, you'll come out ahead. But they're hard laws to beat. And what Derek and John are going to walk through here is a really, I think, a great simple example that just illustrates that point so clearly. Because we always think about, Nelson also said, think long term. And one of the things that we have a hard time thinking about is the effect of taxes and rates of return and saving over time. We're always like in the moment, but when you actually factor that out over time, it really can show how you can compound your savings, or you can compound your debts. And so this is a really simple, powerful example that shows if you can just save a little bit more, if you can reduce your expenses just a little bit more than your income, how much of a massive impact that has in your future pool of capital that you can passively retire on or use later in life.
Sure. Great. Well, John, why don't you go ahead and tweak the age and the starting income here for this example?
Yeah, so we're going to start off with a 30-year-old that is going to work until age 65. Okay. And we're going to assume that, an average 30-year-old is going to make $100,000, right? Just to keep things, easy, good numbers. And we're going to assume that their annual increase in their income, just like Derek was saying, whether that be just your W-2 job increasing, or maybe you get additional cash flow from assets, whatever it may be, and your income, we'll just assume linearly increases 3% every year. And this is from age 30 to 65.
Yeah, the big thing here, the main takeaway is to recognize over those 35 years, the net result, how much income were you generating through those years, and how much of that money is passing through your hands. So in this example here, we have just over $6 million going through this family's hands in the form of just straight income, and their increases, their bonuses or raises, whatever they may be, 3% each year. What that would mean for the family is $6 million going in and out of their hands. So let's take a look now at the expenses, because we obviously know that we don't save 100% of our income here. So what can we expect for expenses?
Yeah, so we're going to round up. 4.5% is the current national savings rate. We're just going to round up to 5% and assume that of the $100,000 that first year, you're spending $95,000, or otherwise, the inverse is that you're saving $5,000 that year, and you're going to save 5% every year, right? And we're going to assume that your percentage of savings increases, or excuse me, that it stays in proportion with the income increase, right? So we're going to say that your spending increases 3% as well, just for starting off, along with your income increasing at 3%. And just see what happens there. So you go from $6 million flowing through your hands over 35 years to the total amount that you had saved. Say you just parked it in a shoebox. You're at just over $300,000 saved over 35 years.
And this is just human habit, right? I mean, there's so many of us that this is the tough habit to break. Hey, I just got a raise, or hey, I just got a bonus or promoted. Okay, my income increased. What am I going to do with it? Oh, I want to go buy that new toy, or take my family on a vacation, or, whatever it is. Your expenses rise to meet your increasing income. That's what we were talking about when Rob was illustrating what Parkinson's law is. So here, yeah, we went from 6 million down to 300,000. But guys, obviously, most people aren't saving in a shoebox, or aren't parking that money inside of or under their mattress or in the walls of their house. So let's go ahead and illustrate a 5% rate of return. Okay, so now what we're showing here is you've taken the savings each year, and now we went from 300,000 and we've increased that to 700,000. Maybe we had to take a little risk along the way. Maybe we had to invest it, whatever it might have been. The rate of return that, just for this simple illustration, is to document a 5% rate of return. But still, 700,000, guys. I don't know about you, but that doesn't quite seem like I'm ready to retire. Not with the amount that inflation continues to increase by, so many different factors. 700,000 just probably doesn't quite cut it for many people.
I just want to explain what that means when you say like, is 700,000 enough? Is $1
Yeah.
million enough? Is $10 million? Like when people talk about accumulating wealth over their working years into a retirement nest egg, right? $1 million in your account may sound wonderful, especially if you're making $100,000 and you're thinking, wow, I have $1 million, at my disposal. The goal is not to plan to that point, but through that point, right?
Hmm.
You got to play the game out in your head of what that looks like from age 65 until you pass away and whether or not legacy matters. So then if legacy matters, you don't want to run out of money, right? So then what's called the safe withdrawal rate is around 3 to 4%. I'd say a maximum of 4%. If
Hmm.
your $1 million is going to provide an income for you in retirement, a safe withdrawal rate to not run out of money is around $40,000 at its top, end of
Yeah.
the spectrum there.
Right.
And
$1,000
that's,
is not a lot,
yeah,
especially
no, and that's
35
40,
years down the road.
and that's $40,000 in future dollars, which is what be net effect of like $18,000 a year or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then also that's assuming you get 5% on your money.
Every single
That's
year.
every single year. That's not a guaranteed assumption either. But let's say, well, what would happen? Let's say if someone's like, well, I know I can get more than 5%. There are financial gurus that say I can get way more than 5%. So let's up that up a little bit.
Yeah, so you're now taking on additional risk, right? Generally, the higher the rate of return, the higher the risk that you're taking. And this is assuming 10% every single year for 35 straight years. And that looks great. And that's what
That's
I believe that's what Wall Street is going to advertise. They're not going to
hmm
advertise, take control of your cash flow and don't, increase your lifestyle as your income increases. No, they're going to say, you know, spend and do what you want, live life to the fullest, and then park your money with us and we'll get you the highest rate of return possible so that, with the little bit that you're saving, you can bring it up to, just under 2 million in this case, right? With a
Yep.
10% rate of return.
Yep.
Yeah, and of
But
course,
John, you're right. Go ahead, Derek.
I was going to say, just a lot of people, they see, okay, 2 million. Well, surely I can retire off the 2 million. But even at a 4% withdrawal rate, that's still only $80,000. You're still living on less than what you were making through your working years.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. Your income, assuming this is a linear 3% increase, is a $275,000 roughly. And then say you do have that $2 million, you go from 275 down to 80,000, right?
Yeah, huge,
That's a
huge drop.
pay cut that you're, almost guaranteeing for yourself in this case.
Right.
That's something you get this crazy high rate of return too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pretty dangerous assumptions. Okay, so let's see the flip side, guys. Now, so obviously we've compared, this person was saving 5% of their income starting, and then they continued to save only 5%, even though they were receiving raises, bonuses, promotions, whatever. So let's just take, for example, now, instead of increasing your expenses to match the increasing income, let's just change one thing. John's going to change your expense growth to 2%. It was at 3. Now we're going to just say, okay, if we can intentionally save slightly more by refocusing our attention, maybe there's some other tools or gadgets or programs out there that can help us do this, but we're going to save a little bit more. Our income increased, but our expenses did not increase as much. So instead of it showing a 3% increase in expenses, we're going to only show 2%. So if you remember, just by saving alone, we were at 300,000 previously. And now we're showing by just controlling our growth in expenses, almost 1.3 million. We got $1 million
Huge.
more. We didn't take on any more risk. We didn't invest it. The only thing we did was focus in on controlling our expenses.
Yeah, that's huge.
So then with what you kept, which is $1 million more, you don't have to go out in the market or out in whatever shady investment opportunity that you may have presented to you. And you can
Hmm.
go back to a conservative, way less risky in many cases, just like infinite banking, like there's guaranteed vehicles that you can get
Hmm.
conservative rates of return. So let's bring it back to the 5% that's very conservative and doesn't impose additional risk for your family and see what that gets you.
Yeah.
We're even
That's two and
further
a
down.
half million dollars, right? So that's way
Yep.
more than the added risk of 10% every year, which I highly doubt anybody's getting, honestly, over 35 consecutive years. Um, Plus, you have guarantees and certainty in there and peace of mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's just so powerful. And I think, just for our listeners, if you are a listener, go to our YouTube channel, The Banking Show, The Family Banking Show on YouTube, and watch this because it's so powerful. By just doing one thing, by saving 1%, and without taking any risk. So you didn't have to expose yourself to more risk by having your money in riskier vehicles. By just doing the one thing, by beating Parkinson's law by 1%, you vastly improve your pool of capital that you can retire on in the future. It's such a compelling argument. I hope our listeners and our watchers can really see that just by doing that one simple thing, yeah, without adding any risk, you can greatly benefit the future of your family.
Yeah, and for our listeners who aren't on YouTube right now, just to reiterate, when we were investing and we were earning a 10% rate of return, we found that our net result was just under $2 million. And now what we've done is we've controlled our expenses. So instead of our expenses growing to match our increasing income, and we've reduced our rate of return down to 5% instead of the 10%, still our net result is almost 2.5 million. So we've uh, essentially earned another $500,000, but we did it with less risk. But we had to focus in on being very intentional with our savings. That was the main driving factors. If you can control your expenses and your savings, there's not a need to go and chase these ridiculous rates of return and have so much risk involved. You can do this just by being very intentional and disciplined.
Yep. Yeah, it's powerful. And then as a test, I did that. So like typically we get our raises in the fall, and same with my wife, and bonuses in the fall and things like that, or different kind of things happen in the fall. And so what I did this time though is for my increase in my paycheck, I just took that off, manually moved it over into another account, and any extra money that we had that I would normally have it just sit in my savings account or my checking account, I moved it over intentionally, and that added up fast. It's shocking how much cash added up that quickly over 4 or 5 months that you just I would have paid. I don't know what I would have done with it. Be honest, I think, isn't that kind of the mystery, is we don't even know what we do with it. We just spend it, but just intentionally saving that extra that was coming in, because we already have our expenses covered. It was money over and above our expenses that normally would have just pooled up in our checking account, or I would have put it, since I'm an honest banker and I believe in infinite banking, I would have put it into my policy loans. But for this test, I put it off into a side account just to see what would happen, and it was really eye-opening how much it grew, and our lifestyle didn't change at all. So it's really, yeah, it's a powerful approach.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we are more than happy to help people with is implementing a structure, like an actual uh, banking system, like and not infinite banking system, but like actual, like there's a FDIC insured account to it. It's called Currents, and we're able to help people with their cash flow so that they can, the way we like to talk about it is that you unconsciously save and you consciously spend, so that each time there is that increase, you're in a position of choice. Like do I want to spend it on a new gadget or whatever it may be, or am
Hmm.
I going to consciously, like, I have to consciously spend to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas
Right.
if I don't spend it, then I'm unconsciously just saving it and realizing that savings like immediately rather than having to, manually move it over and have all sorts of, hurdles to jump over to even get to that point. And then as soon as you're at that point where you're like, wow, I have a lot more savings. I think I want to put this towards things that'll bless my family. And that's where those conversations can continue and you truly like multiply those savings. And you're not
Hmm.
just realizing the shoebox type of savings, like you're then able to earn those multiple returns and increase kind of that velocity of snowballing like your assets and cash flow, which only increases your savings and only can increase, honestly, your lifestyle too. Like the lifestyle increase that people want in these scenarios where their 3% raise increases with their 3% lifestyle inflation, like you can still get that lifestyle increase with discipline and adding cash flow engines rather than just taking it straight from your income.
Right.
So that's a really powerful thing to do, and it sets up your family, your generations to come for long-term success, just like we continue talking about. But to think long-term and all along the way, be disciplined and overcome. In this case, it's Parkinson's law to just that one little tweak. It's just a 1%. If you want to make it 2%, go for it, and that'll be just all the more powerful. And we're happy to help you with that.
Definitely.
Well, good stuff, guys. Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode and being able to see just the power of intentional savings. I hope our listeners have enjoyed it. If this is something that you're interested in learning more about, not only how to become your own banker and start your own family banking system, but as John and Rob have discussed, utilizing currents as a savings tool to help automate your savings, if you will. If you're interested in learning more, please reach out to us. Send us an email at thefamilybankingshow@gmail.com, and we would be thrilled to sit down with you and to discuss what some of your options are. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next episode.
See you guys.
Thank you for joining us. If you're interested in a conversation about anything we've discussed, you can find our contact information in the show notes below.
And subscribe, follow, and leave a review to help spread this message and to help families across the country discover the generational blessing of IBC. May God bless you, and we'll see you next time.